call me Terri. Yes, please call me Terri. And I first and foremost want to say thank you so much for picking up the phone when Western Power called, for your presence to come and, join us here. And as I was telling you a little bit about Western Power before we started, and why we do these educational community civic series and the importance of local elections in our lives, that affect our lives 365 days a year. So we do these educational communities, civic series to educate our community specifically about something as important as what you're running for, Magistrate, the person who has their finger on the pulse of the community. So again, I want to thank you for coming and picking up the phone when we ask for your presence.
Well, I don't know why you're saying it like that. Like, this is for me to be able to have this opportunity, I think, to be able to speak with the voters directly, and be able to have people understand who I am as a person. I know it's like you said, it's local politics affect our lives 365 days a year, and I think it's imperative that our leaders are around 360 days a year, are visible for 365 days a year. And so this is just a good opportunity for me to get my name out there, who I am, what I'm about. So I thank you and Western Power for the opportunity and the journey that we're about to go on.
Yeah. Wow, you're more than welcome. So with that, my first question to you is, who are you?
Demetrius L. Baldwin. I am originally from Braddock and Rankin. I grew up there, played sports in Braddock and Rankin my whole life, all throughout the Mon Valley. But at the same time, I attended school in Squirrel. So I went to Winchester Thurston, the Bears over there for middle school. And then high school, I went to a private boarding school in West Virginia. So for those formative years, I wasn't really in the Mon Valley, but I was transient. So I was coming home for summers, coming home on weekends, but during the week, I was, within this bubble. And so the experiences and the education that I received there, the diversity, right, that I experienced there, shaped my perspective, my worldview. I attended a high school with kids from Korea, South Korea, Mexico, different countries in Europe, China, different countries in Africa, Ethiopia. My roommate was Ethiopian, brother, so I have a different perspective on people, culture, and so, that kind of shaped my perspective. And then in college, I got, really into African studies and women and gender studies and philosophy. And so, I graduated with a psychology degree. I have a minor in philosophy, but I had enough credits to have a minor in history as well as African studies. So it was those kind of experiences that shaped who I am. And so my worldview and my perspective is really anthropological.
Wow. Yeah.
That's who I am.
Wow, thank you for that. And you mentioned that you went to Winchester Thurston. I remember when I first I worked at Poise Foundation, was the scholarship manager, and the first time I heard of Winchester Thurston was then. Amazing school, amazing people come out of there, and so thank you so much for sharing that with us. And you touched on a little bit about why you're here. And so tell us, with your background, I think I read that you are also a teacher as well. And so with your experience, with your background, how would you take that to the magistrate seat?
So, I think a magistrate has to have, like you said, the pulse on the community, right? And the communities that I would serve, youth right now is a hot button issue, keeping the youth away from the criminal justice system. addiction and mental health are things that we struggle with out in our communities. Mm-hmm. And as well as landlord and tenant, disputes and things of that nature. So my experience, my first job experience was in mental health. I worked at one of the only Black mental health clinics in the city. And so we had a lot of people who were coming there, straight from the corrections system, right? So Department of Corrections would send individuals, participants to us to receive treatment. And so I was in charge of supporting those participants when they receive services through us. So I worked, with probation officers and with participants to try and make sure that they receive treatment and to keep them away from any kind of violations of their probation because they did not show up or anything like that. So it's that kind of perspective of thinking about the person and caring about the needs of the individual rather than the whims of the system. That I'm gonna try to bring with me. You mentioned me teaching, so I did substitute teach for a couple of years at my alma mater, that boarding school that I went to. I was also a football coach, wrestling coach, basketball coach, track coach.
Wow. Okay.
And so, my whole life I've been trying to be a revolutionary in the things that I do. And while I was there, I started a dance class with the kids that, eventually turned into performances that we did for the entire, not just the school, but the entire community in Wheeling, West Virginia. So having, Black students represent themselves in a positive way, really was something that, like I said, was revolutionary because that performance, that extravaganza is what they called it, was something that for a long time was a minstrel show, right? Mm-hmm. Was a minstrel show in the early 40s and since the school's inception, up till like around the 50s, they did away with it. And so to have Black students standing up there and representing themselves positively was revolutionary for that school. And so that was something that I, pioneered there while I was coaching and teaching. I also worked at Linsly School as a paraprofessional and dealt with students who may have, I won't even say may, did go in front of magistrates. I went in front of a magistrate with a student and, witnessed kind of like the callousness of these guys when they sit there and deal with these kids. And I mean, kids, right? Like this was a middle school student.
Yeah.
And he's, he did something to me that was hurtful. And, we ended up in front of a magistrate. And my response was, rather than giving him fines and fees, let's figure out a way to get him some treatment and support to fix whatever the problems are that are causing the behaviors we see in the school, right? So it's that kind of perspective. Bringing that to the bench is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Quick question. When were you at Linsly?
So when I first came back to Pittsburgh after teaching for 2 years, I was I got a job with Pittsburgh Public, and that was the first place I went. So it was around 2019. And then I was there until December of 2019, and I left in January of 2020.
Wow. So because Langley's right down the street from me, so it's when you say Linsly, that's home. But what I also wanted to comment on is that how you took, and I hope that our listeners is hearing that, you took something, like you said, someone did something hurtful to you, but you took that and still wanted to change it around and not in punishment of a record or something that can harm and hinder this individual going forward, but rather make that a learning experience by putting in some type of resources and help. So, and that's huge. That is really huge because that's what we need in our magistrates, and I also heard you also say how you coached a lot, and to be a coach, and I'm sure that everyone listening knows that you have to have a passion. First, you have to have a passion for the game that you are coaching and also for the people. So, and that's, everybody can't be a coach. I know I can't. I couldn't. I just, I couldn't. And so that takes a special person and a special skill. So I want to thank you for sharing that with us as well. Now, I also had read that you had another young lady. I heard her say, the same thing, and I read that you had said somewhere that you feel that this is your duty to run for this magistrate seat. Explain that duty to us.
So the first part of that is that my grandparents have been working in the Mon Valley for over 50 years. My granddad, before he passed, he actually ran for mayor in Braddock, lost by a vote. Yeah, right.
Ooh.
Actually, yeah, I keep his card with me, just because the power of that ancestor, it really like drives me and moves me. But so it's the first trying to carry on their legacy, and, continue and build on that for the Baldwin name. But aside from that, I witnessed a lot of my friends that I played sports with growing up in Braddock and Rankin, the city, because I played, baseball and football in the city too, end up in front of magistrates when they're young, really, real young, teenager, age, and have their lives forever altered. Like one of my homies is in he's in ACJ right now. This man has been on probation since he was 14, like, it's like, how does that, so, when I think about those things and I think about the opportunity and the ability of some of the people that I care about to actually change in their lives, like they may not have that capacity, right? They may not be able to sit down and think about these things, read articles and worry about probation and cash bail. Like they may not be able to do that because they're survive. You know what I'm saying? So it's incumbent upon other folks, right, who have that capacity, who may be able to sit down and deal with those kinds of things, right, because of their experiences to enact change for the masses when they can. And so that's when I say, like, that's why I say it's a duty of mine.
Yeah. Wow. As your friend, this long record of, or this long history of probation, which holds us back and put hindrance on us, it also, like you said, what he or she has lost or is, and that also the community loses as well. It's an all around no win for no one. And so I'm glad you brought that up, about cash bail, because it starts at the magistrate, our prisoner school pipeline. Can you speak on that and how that will affect or hinder in the Mon Valley?
So the first thing I think is really important to bring up is that the economic impact, right? We all pay taxes, and we pay taxes. Part of that goes to the upkeep and sustainment of jails and prisons, right? So the fact that when someone's on probation, we have to continue to pay and support that supervision, because it's not support, supervision of a person for years, right? That we know, right? And if they're going to reoffend in the first year, right? The studies show that they'll offend in the first year, so that the 8 or 3 other years and your 4-year probation are irrelevant, because if you're going to make that mistake, you're going to make it in the first year, right? So the fact that we have that that, I would call it like a not a failsafe, but like a hammer, right, in that part of the system, really shows the disconnect between the system and the people, because the people clearly aren't benefiting, right, the economic impact of of, like you said, the individual. So the individual loses out on their house, their job, you know, time with family. The family then loses out on that person that is the provider, and the community loses out on another individual that could uplift that community for one thing. But then on top of that, like I said, the taxpayers have to then continue to pay into a system that was broken. So in the Mon Valley specifically, I think that a magistrate with that kind of perspective can definitely change the economic situations of folks if they have that kind of sentiment.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm so glad that you broke that down like that for us, because you made it extremely plain. And I smiled when you said, you know, a person, you know, after that first year, within that year is going to commit a crime, because those are facts. And I smiled because that shows, and I hope that, you know, our listeners hear that you have done your research. And that's something that, you know, we should want and respect. But you broke it down so plain about, you know, how everyone loses, how the taxpayer loses, how the person loses, how the people loses, and then how the community loses. So I want to thank you so much for that, for breaking that all the way down for us so we can understand it.
Yeah, I think it's because it's frustrating. You know what I mean? It's frustrating, I think, for people, and especially people that may not like have that kind of understanding of it, like from a macro level. I think it's really frustrating to see like, you know, the same people ending up in the same situations, but it's of the system putting them in that same predicament over and over and over again. And that's the definition of insanity, right? So that would cause.
You took it out my lip, because that's exactly what I was going to say. That is a 100% perfect case of doing the same thing, expecting different results. Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you for that. Now, I want to ask you, you know, and I'll be the first to say that I was extremely ignorant to, you know, what was going on in the Mon Valley until a friend of mine, Fawn Montgomery, introduced myself in some, you know, different ideas and agendas of the Mon Valley, you know. And so for someone who is not familiar with the magistrate seat, does not understand what the magistrate brings to the community, and may not even care about voting for this magistrate seat, what would you say to someone who, like myself, did not know, or people in the Mon Valley who may not be following this? What would you say the importance of this is to them?
I would say that it's the most important thing that you can vote for in this election right now. People, right? You know, the Mon Valley is working class. We are a blue collar working class town, right? And until there's a person in people, not just a person, but people across the Mon Valley that understand that into consideration whenever they're adjudicating, there's no way that we can have any kind of uplift for the people, right? Because the Mon Valley right now is booming in terms of industry. It's been called the new Silicon Valley. And so there's a lot of business and commerce coming in that is not really reaching and touching the individuals that have kept it what it is for so long, you know? And so a magistrate can not only, like I said before, change the economic station of people by not fining and not using monetary conditions for release. But aside from that, it can be a public utility, right? So it could educate people on the judicial system. It could educate us civically, just in general, right? Teaching us about government and the ways in which laws affect our lives. It can also be a one-stop shop for any kind of program or resource that you may need. That like the way that we imagine community service right now, we only think of like service, like work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It can truly be whatever you want. And it could be something where it's vocational, right? We could be teaching people how to have job skills, right? We could do job training. So there's a lot of different things that a magistrate can do, linking people with mental health services, linking people with housing services. Like there's so much that a magistrate can do, that to not vote for or care about who your magistrate is, doesn't, and it's not their fault because nobody's been talking about that, right?
Right.
Talking about what a magistrate can do for their community. But after you heard it, if you don't hear it in, like there's something wrong, right? There's something wrong. So.
Right. Because, and that is you hit it right on the button. That's exactly why West Empower, we are so happy and we love doing these educational community civic series, because the thing is, people, you don't know what you just don't know, and what we know is that our ignorance to knowing has been used as weapons against us. You see, of our lack of knowing. So that's why it's so important that we're doing what we're doing now. I want to go back to, because you have done a lot in the community. You have done a lot. So tell us, when and if you get on this magistrate seat, how would you go back out into the community and include them? Because there's sometimes people, get there and they don't come back out. So what would you do in that situation?
Well, that's a great question. I appreciate you for asking it. And I think it speaks to the whole model of what I'm trying to bring. So I'm trying to institute a co-justice model, which the co part is community. So community justice. So while I would be the ultimate, because as the elected official, I would adjudicate cases in my courtroom, but there could also be community panels that hear complaints from the community, that hear and support victims in the community, and every community that I would serve is different. So Braddock and North Braddock are much different from Turtle Creek and Duquesne. Right. So having a magistrate that thinks like that and can take that kind of perspective and knows that, there needs to be a different community panel in all of these different places, and has the time and is willing to give the time, right, to be present in those spaces, and hear those complaints and those concerns, would I think would change the whole face of justice. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to rethink justice for the Mon Valley, right? Aside from that, I think it's really important that a magistrate, especially one that looks like me, is visible not just to the community, but to our kids, right, and our youth. So one of the things that I want to do is have not a situation when a kid comes to see me. If a kid comes to see me, that's the first time that they've seen me.
Yeah.
Right? And then on top of that, if they've come to my courtroom, I want to try to make sure that they don't ever come back. Right. Yeah. So I'm not going to do things that require them to reattend my courtroom. So things like, giving somebody a stay of 30 days and extending it out. That means they have to come back and see me.
Yeah.
These are things that we do. If a kid or if anybody is in a courtroom, enters the criminal justice system, they then are more likely to remain in the criminal justice system, right? So if we can, what the system is saying is if we can get a kid in the criminal justice system at 8, right?
Yeah.
Right. If we can get them in front of a judge at 8 years old, then they'll come in front of a judge again when they're 16 for sure. That means they'll come in front of a judge when they're 20 for sure. You see what I'm saying? So we have to break that at the lowest level, and that's where a magistrate sits, right, at the lowest level on the criminal justice ladder. So I think we can make real change if we put our minds to it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, because especially I want to comment on, when you said how you don't want a kid to, the first time they see you is in your courtroom. That speaks volumes, because once, somebody see you out in the public, or attending a game, or, being that normal person, being that normal Black man. And then when they see you, with your robe on, they can also recognize that this is going to be a fair judgment. No matter what the judgment is, I'm going to get a fair shake because I know of this person, or I know this person to be fair. So that's huge. That's really huge. How, because that's extremely important that when you said you don't want that to be the first time that a youth see you, is with your Black robe on. So that's extremely, and thank you so much for that. So I asked you about the, why should someone from Mon Valley care? And we talked about the prison to pipeline. I also asked you, why should the community care about the magistrate seat? Now I want to ask you something personal. So tell us something about yourself that only maybe your family members know, and maybe a few close friends that you are proud of. You're proud of this accomplishment, or you're proud of something you've done, but you just don't brag about it.
Ooh, there's something I never talk about. I was an All-American football player in college.
Oh, okay. See, okay. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah. It's something I'm proud of, but I don't talk about it ever.
Yeah. So, and now we know a little bit more about who you are, so thank you so much for that.
Of course. Actually, I'd like to go back to the school to prison pipeline if I could.
Please do.
Yeah, because I feel like it's such an important topic, and I think it's something that, again, we need to shift the way we think about. So I'm all about language, and I'm all about imagery, right? That the language, elicits for you. So when you think school to prison pipeline, that image for you is a connection between the school and the prison, and the kids are just, funneling through it, right? I don't think that that's what it is. I think that school and prison are a nexus that are connected to each other, right? And that's some of the the research that is out there now is about how schools and prisons are working in tandem to produce people who need to be imprisoned, not just a pipeline that in some ways, like by no means of the system, like the kids just end up there, right? The system is actually built to funnel certain groups of people to a position in life where they are then required to be imprisoned. So if we shift the way we think about that and start to change the way our schools look and the way that our schools interact with kids and then discipline, I think that we can change the way that we understand that pipeline, metaphor would then be something more like a web or like, like the interconnections are so deep and entrenched that you have to really shift the way school is in order to produce a student that is then going to be a more engaged adult. You see what I'm saying? And a civically responsible adult. And that's not what's happening right now.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I want you to break that down for us a little bit more. So you're saying that, so what, no, I don't want to say what you're saying. So let me ask you, what could be done different? When you say this, what could be done different?
So, first of all, having police in schools, crazy. Like for me, that's crazy because I had never had a police officer in my school. I had a security guard.
Yeah.
I never had to walk through a metal detector.
Yeah.
To be frisked. Right? I was never called a juvenile.
Yeah.
Right. So those little things change, big things because it's something that happens every day, right?
Yeah.
You know, they say like a habit is formed after 90 days of repetitive action for the same action. So if for 90 days are seeing police, dealing with police, being frisked, you know, being searched, having to enter through metal detectors, right? When you go, it's a referral that looks like a citation, right? And if you get enough referrals, then you got to go down to the magistrate. Now you're of a judge and you're a kid. So I've been in fights in school. I never had to go to in front of a judge for that. I did a principal's office. Sometimes these kids already get a sanction in school, right? So you get a school-based sanction, like a suspension. They don't really do detention anymore, but like an suspension, something like that. You get that school-based sanction. So why are we then sending a kid to, you know, in front of a judge? Why? Because it's what I had mentioned earlier. If we can get a kid in front of a judge at 10, right, then we'll probably have them again by 16, right? So that's the way that the system is manufacturing, right?
Wow.
So
that's a huge word. That's a huge word and meaning. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're cool. No, I was done.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for that, because I wanted to make sure that we understood the importance of what you were saying. You know, wow. Thank you so much. Now, Demetrius, tell us why you. Why are you so unique? Or what about you is unique, and why you for this magistrate seat?
I don't know. I ask myself that all the time, and I get to, you know, if not, then who, and if not now, then when. That's always end up having those answers whenever I ask myself that question, because I truly don't think that I am, you know, better than anybody or you know, have more intelligence than anybody else or anything like that. I think it's my experiences. I think it's my my perspective because of those experiences, and the experiences that I've had are due to the sacrifices of my parents and my family. And you know, like I was speaking to somebody yesterday. They were like, you know, as long as you work hard and you know, work as hard as you can have what you want. And I was like, you know, I was like, I've worked really hard before and I didn't get what I wanted, right? I am where I am today because of the people who have supported me my whole life. And, you know, that's not just, you know, the people in my family. Obviously, they've had the biggest impact. But there are other people as well who've had a hand in developing what I am. And so I will always cherish and give deference to those who have shaped me.
And you know, what I hear from you is my personal observation is that, you know, you step up to the plate. You still, when there is a need, you know, you step in. You don't sit on the sideline and wait for someone else to do it. I figure you see that there's a need in Mon Valley for a magistrate with a diverse outlook. And that goes back to, you know, what you were saying at the very beginning, who you went to school with, how your school was so diverse. So this was planted in you. That seed was planted in you years ago, you know, to see a need and step up and be that person, you know, instead of, because what we can do real good is, you know, sit on the sideline and say everything is wrong, you know, and still just stay on the side. We do that real good and we get comfortable with it, you know. You know, stepping up to running for a seat as huge as this in the Mon Valley is, first of all, it's challenging, you know. It has to be scary, you know. It has to be. It's not something that, you know, somebody just say, you know what, I'm gonna take and run for this. No, so I commend you for that, you know, because like I said, it's very, you know, we could sit on the sideline real good and get real comfortable and point fingers of what's wrong.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, this needs to be done, and this person needs to go, and that person. But stepping up, saying, well, like you just said, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? You know, so that's really huge.
I can speak more to that too. Like when you said that I was like, you know, that seed was planted in me a long time ago, I think that's true. You know, I said this at my launch event the other day, but my grandfather, he would sit me down and turn on C-SPAN and have me watch C-SPAN as they would, you know, they'd be in the middle of a session in Congress and I'd be sitting there watching it as a 5-year-old. What do I know about parliamentary procedure? I don't know anything, but I'm learning, right?
Yeah.
You know, by 15, I was, you know, really steeped in under civic duty. And he kind of instilled in me because he always, you know, made it clear that it's about the people and righteousness. And as long as you're for the people, then you're doing what's righteous. So that's kind of where that seed comes from, is definitely.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. I think I did read, or I seen something. Might have been your grandfather or somebody. It was a picture of you and then a picture of, was that your grandfather?
That's my Pat. Pat. I keep that picture with me. You know what I mean? Like I keep it with me close to my heart, you know, in my inside pocket, because like I said, he gives me strength, and he always, like, even when I was playing football, you know what I mean? Like that was somebody that I, you know, would pray to and you know, ask for support. And so that's why I'm doing it now. And he has been. I can feel him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for that. Now let me ask you, because there may be someone listening, or there may be people that want to ask a question that I did not ask, or they may want to go in further and ask you something altogether different, or they may even want to volunteer. How can someone get in touch with you?
So they can go onto our website. Our website is Baldwin, 4, and then change.com. They can go on Facebook. Our Facebook is @vote, 4 again, Baldwin. And then you can email me directly at Baldwin, 4, change@gmail.com. Or you can send me a Facebook message, you know, right on Messenger. Like I'm really trying to be accessible for people. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, reach out. If you want to join the campaign and help us make history in the Mon Valley, please do that. You know, I'd be the youngest and the first Black magistrate in our district. So
wait a minute, I didn't know that. Speak on that. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
So
I'd be the youngest.
That one of my questions. Okay, so good.
It's okay.
So educate us on that, on some history.
So I'd be the youngest in the county right now. I know there's a magistrate who started out. He's a little bit younger than me. I think he was around 25, out in Harrisburg, a Black as well. But I'd be the youngest in this county, and be the first Black magistrate in our district. So District 05247 is North Braddock, East Pittsburgh, Duquesne, and Turtle Creek. I would be their first Black magistrate. They've never had a Black magistrate out in the Mon Valley, period. So that's, you know, there's multiple magistrates within that you know, reside within the Mon Valley area. And they've never had a Black one. So I think it would turn the system on its head. And you know, having had, you know, a murder of a young Black man only years ago, right? Antoine Rose in East Pittsburgh, for the young people to see somebody who looks like them and looks like that young man, right? I think would do so much for not just our community, but I think it would do a lot for the county. I think it could do a lot for the state. It could for anybody who sees somebody as young as I am doing that kind of work, because it just lets you know that you can do it.
Yeah.
I was talking to a young dude. He was like, I don't know, I think he might have been like 6. But like, we were standing outside and we were talking. I was talking to his parents, and he came out. And I told him, like, hey man, like, I need you to be ready to take my job, right? Like, please be ready to take my job when you get to be 21, because you can at the age of 21. And it's just like knowing stuff like that, like that you can be the magistrate at 21.
Yeah.
And there's no law against it, so you can do it. And just having that kind of knowledge, I think, changes the perspective of people. It definitely did for me.
And you know what you said to him, just like your pap did with you at 5. He's never going to forget that. He's never going to forget. And when he see you again, you know, he's never going to forget what you said to him. You know, so
that's the thing. And like magistrates, their terms are 6 years. So you know, I was talking to 2 other kids. They're 9, and I was like, you know, a term is 6 years. By the time I'm done, you'll be 15. Like, to run again, you'll be 21. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you'll be a grown man. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I was just like, you know, it's crazy to think about that, but the impact it can have for 6 years on a community's life, like the life of the community for that 6 years, I think can really change a lot. And so that's why I'm doing. That's why the campaign is called Baldwin for Change. And so I really appreciate being able to talk and speak to the community like this. This is great, Ms. Spencer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
No, please. You're more than welcome. And what I'm hoping is that, you know, these young youth watch your path. You know, they watch your path and mirror it. And because it's extremely important, like you said, that, you know, that they see someone that resembles them, you know, and that does nothing but, you know, put hope into people. So, you know, I want to thank you so much for that. And now, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to say before we wrap up this afternoon?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it speaks to, you know, what you were just talking about. Like, why are we doing all of this? Why do we have laws? Why do we have magistrates, right? You know, we have all that because we in search of divinity. Like, we're trying to reach divinity, right? Religion is what bred laws, right? That in history, that's what, you know, there was never law without religion first. Like, way back to Egypt, right? In the laws of Ma'at, it didn't come from a law book; it came from their religion. So, and you know, I always, you know, like to quote philosophers. It's not, you know, it's whether it's Imhotep or Aristotle. And so you know, a quote from Aristotle that he said that always spoke to me. Oh, no, maybe it was Socrates. It was Socrates. I'm sorry. He says that, you know, all the souls of men are immortal, but it is only the souls of the righteous men that are both immortal and divine. And so our search is for divinity, right? And so I'm trying to bring like a righteous perspective to the magistrate seat, and try to be that I don't know, beacon for our people, because I think it's what we need. Like, we need to see somebody who's like ready and willing to go out and represent us and support us in those conversations where we may not be able to for ourselves. And so that's something that I really want to bring to the seat. And I appreciate you, you know, again, allowing me to talk this long. Nobody else will let me.
It is our honor. It is our honor to have you as our guest. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we follow you and have you back on.
Love that.
Yeah, because as you know, things change daily. Things change, and we hope when you come back, you are going to have in front of Demetrius Baldwin is Magistrate. Demetrius Baldwin. And so There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Demetrius Baldwin, running for magistrate in the Mon Valley. He's asking you to tell somebody to help him make history and be part of it. So with that, if you don't have anything else to say, we're going to wrap it up. And again, we want to say thank you so much for coming here and at our Educational Community Civic Series, being our guests, educating us. You got something else you want to say?
No, all I want to say is thank you. All I want to say is thank you for the opportunity. And it was an honor and a pleasure. And I hope I can return.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The door is always open. I think I gave you, you have my number. If there's ever, we would love to follow your journey. And like you said, you would love to have trainings in the communities. We would love to follow you with that, and because the trainings is educational for us as well. So with that, everybody, Demetrius Baldwin, and we want to say thank you so much. And thank you for stepping out and not sitting on the sidelines and say, like you said, if not you, then who? If not when? If not now, then when? So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
And absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for coming. And with that, we're going to say, have a good afternoon.